Emperor Sheev Palpatine's insatiable lust for power has led him into decades of conquest and ruthless bloodshed, subjugating nearly the entire galaxy within his grasp. Over the years, he has come up against some of the most powerful opponents that the galaxy has to offer, only to best nearly every one of them in single combat. While his duels with Master Yoda and Mace Windu are the most iconic and well-remembered encounters, one particular duel leaves us with a few questions. During the Clone Wars, Sidious battled his own former apprentice turned cornerstone of the criminal underworld, Darth Maul, who sought to confront Palpatine with his brother Savage Opress by his side. Though they were ultimately defeated by Palpatine during this battle, Maul wielded the Darksaber, the iconic Mandalorian artifact, which grants control of the entire Mandalorian armada to the wielder, denoting them as the ruler of Mandalore. By all accounts, Palpatine should have inherited the Darksaber from Maul after defeating him in solo combat in accordance with the Mandalorian custom, and he would have been able to command the Mandalorians as well as both the Grand Army of the Republic as well as the Separatist fleet. So then, why didn't Palpatine claim the Darksaber for himself after defeating Maul? Why did he let Maul keep control of Mandalore, and what would have happened if Palpatine decided to claim the Darksaber for himself? Well, today, students of the Force, let's answer why Palpatine let Mandalore slip through his fingertips and did not claim the Darksaber. It's first important to understand Palpatine's master plan and why it worked in the first place. While control of Mandalore would have been incredibly sought after by most power-hungry tyrants, Palpatine had much bigger plans at work, and controlling Mandalore would have actually been a detriment more so than it would have been a benefit to his ultimate endgame. On the surface, control over all three of these positions seems to be the ultimate power play, but the reason Palpatine was ultimately able to obtain control of the galaxy was because he got the Republic and the Separatists to destroy one another. Having control over both sides meant nothing if he was exposed as a double agent, and he could only gain full power by eradicating both sides at once, meaning that Darth Sidious would have had to publicly claim control of the Darksaber and the Mandalorian throne in order for the Mandalorians to follow him in the first place, and this would have ended the entire strategy with which he had been working on for so long, and the strategy established by Darth Bane 1,000 years ago. If he outs himself as Darth Sidious and rules as an open Sith Lord, then the Jedi would finally be able to find the ever-elusive Sith Master that had been plaguing their ranks for years, and he would have had a target on his back the size of the Death Star. If Chancellor Palpatine assumed the role, however, and never exposed his dual identity as a Sith Lord, then it would have had a completely different set of ramifications. First, he would have to explain exactly why and how he is talented enough to best a Sith apprentice in physical combat, which he might not have had an answer to. This would also be a direct conflict of interest, as he only commands the Republic as the Supreme Chancellor, but the Jedi Order as well, and his dual leadership over both factions would have likely been disastrous. Palpatine's goal was not to control just one planet or one faction of individuals, but it was to reign supreme over the entire galaxy. But in order to do this, however, he had to let some benefits slip away in favor of a larger grand scheme. Palpatine could have theoretically controlled Mandalore, but this is where his plan would have ended. Allowing himself to stay in the shadows was much more valuable than controlling all of the Mandalorian people. If he assumed the title of Mandalore as Darth Sidious, then he could have waged a full-on war against the Jedi with a Sith Lord commanding the Mandalorian army, which likely would have been a difficult task for the Jedi to subvert. Not to mention, he couldn't have executed Order 66 anymore, because Order 66 required an immense amount of preparation. The reason that Order 66 worked wasn't because it simply eradicated the Jedi, but it worked because he was able to frame the Jedi for treason after being confronted by Mace Windu, and therefore he had cause. If he decided to blindly execute the order without any justification, then the Senate would have never allowed him to create a new empire without just cause. And if he was ruling over Mandalore at the same time, then this very public conflict of interest would have crippled Sidious's plan. There is simply no way for him to utilize the order because everyone would know exactly why he executed the Jedi. As history has shown, however, conflicts between the Jedi and the Mandalorians seldom end well, and now that the Jedi also had an army of clones at their side, then it would make much more sense to Palpatine to continue with his initial plan. This initial strategy allowed Sidious to create an entirely new style of government far larger than anything the Mandalorians could have provided him. And while the Mandalorians would have been valuable assets, his plan far outweighed simply controlling Mandalore. Palpatine never needed an army, nor did he ever have to be in the front lines of a war in order to to win one. He was always a strategist and a master manipulator. This is why it was so rare, in fact, for Darth Sidious to personally go confront Maul on Mandalore. In fact, Sidious already had 2 armies at his disposal, yet he never served as the leading general of either. He never had to, as Darth Bane proclaimed that the Sith would rule from the shadows and would no longer be outright warriors, but would now become some of the most influential members of the entire galaxy from the shadows. And the Sith had not been able to win a war as purebred warriors. Now they would finally win the war though, as scientists, bankers, and politicians. While the Darksaber served its own series of advantages that Palpatine could have used, especially after the rise of the Empire, the consequences of wielding the Darksaber publicly would have far outweighed any benefits he could have collected by assuming control of the Mandalorian Creed. Palpatine had his grand plan in place, and taking control of the Mandalorians was never a part of it. He did not venture to the world of Mandalore to claim the Darksaber in single combat against Darth Maul, although after defeating him, it absolutely would have been his right to claim all of Mandalore. Instead, it was his goal to completely destroy the galaxy and remake it in his own image with the Empire, and destroy the 2 prominent governing forces in the Republic and the Separatists. And taking the Darksaber for his own would have outed him as a Sith Lord, or would have raised numerous important questions. Not to mention, at the time, Darth Sidious did not need the Mandalorians to get rid of the Jedi, as he already had the clones. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this, and what are your thoughts on our analysis and answer? Do you believe that this makes sense as to why exactly Darth Sidious decided not to claim the Darksaber after defeating Maul in single combat? Do you believe that this was the right move, or do you think that he could have potentially kept it secret and ruled over Mandalore as a Sith Lord? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. Hit that subscribe button, and may the Force be with you.